This show is part of the HeadStuff podcast network.
Lovely stuff.
Hey, lovely, lovely.
I tell you what, though, folks, that's bloody nice. That is bloody lovely.
Lovely Holland. Lovely toys. Lovely Holland.
Hello, and you're very welcome to another episode of The Lovely Show with myself, Kevin McGarren.
I'm Justine Stafford, and
we've got a very special guest here in the studio with us, the amazing Ardal O'Hanlon. Ardal, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. And I feel special.
Do you feel special?
Yes.
Do you feel lovely?
Yes, just to be with you. I do, yes. It's a lovely environment.
Yeah, it's nice and dry.
Yeah.
And calm.
And it's so unusual to do a podcast.
I know we're really trying to get ahead of the game here.
Yeah.
I think we're onto something here.
One thing I am not is a clairvoyant. I genuinely just didn't see podcasts taking off.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. I'm the only comedian in Ireland, if not the world, without their own podcast.
That's a great sell.
We're quite. I was quite proud
That'd
of
be a
it.
good idea for a podcast.
I was quite proud of it, and I had friends who said, "Fair play for not having a podcast. Like this is the kind of people I'm dealing with."
Yeah.
And then like, that kind of kept me going to not have a podcast because I was
haven't
well,
sold out yet.
At least I have the admiration of two of my friends.
To your face.
Two
Never
of my
mind behind your
friends.
back.
Yeah, I don't know what to say behind my back. Do you do a lot of these?
I do occasionally, only the really good ones. Like
Yeah.
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 You seem to be doing a lot more. I see a lot more of you in the last, we say, 10 years.
Oh,
You seem to be a lot more open to doing
Stuff.
various stuff.
generally.
Yeah, stuff in general.
Yeah.
Did you go through a period where
a
you're just
reclusive
like,
period?
Yeah.
Yes.
Howard Hawks' job.
Yeah. Yeah. I disappeared. Like I just grew my hair long. I wore sandals. I wandered around Transylvania. But I found myself, and then I
Yes.
came back, raring to go, doing any podcast going. Anyone who'd have me.
Clearly.
Yeah, no, definitely over the last few years, definitely open to doing more things. I think I was a little precious for a few years,
Yeah.
actually. I mean, I don't mean that in a kind of just a kind of, you know, like just not spreading yourself too thinly.
Burnout. I mean, it's
Yeah.
genuinely a thing that, I mean, I can't even really equate, but there's times where I'm like, I can't. That's exactly it. You're like, just spread too thin among, like, over multiple things that nothing even is making sense
There's also
anymore.
quality of life. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you have to have a life.
Yeah.
I feel like now nothing really matters anymore. So
That
it's
is-
just like you say yes to a lot of different
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I'm kind of more, I try to say no more. I'm
So,
not
yeah.
good at it, but I'm trying to get better at it.
In the bedroom.
Yeah. Well, I'm better at saying no and yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I say no a lot more, and I say yes a lot more.
To the right thing that you know
Yeah.
feels right to do. Yeah.
Definitely. And like my life would revolve around like other things very much so. Like if I had if you had a holiday or if you were going out for friends, like even just for a drink, like, you know, and then a gig came in, you go, no, I have a drink with my friends.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so whereas in the past you might go, oh, geez, a gig.
Yeah.
Better take that or
I don't want to let
whatever.
down 25 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're at a level of fame now. You have a wax work of your face.
Have I?
Yeah, in the
I
wax
do,
museum.
yes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't see it.
Like that's a big thing. Did you, when you saw it, did you have the same reaction that Sinead O'Connor's fans had seeing her face?
No, well, I didn't see mine. Like,
Did you not?
I know I'd be afraid to now. No, but it's...
It does look like a terrified sex doll.
Yeah.
It's
have you-
scared.
but don't they all?
They
Like,
do.
They have you sitting down and you're kind of going like, oh.
You
you
look
do
like
look-
you're on a roller coaster.
Yeah, you look like you were brought to a strip club against your will and somebody's doing a
you're
big
keeping
lap
on-
dance and you're not happy with it at all.
But I think if I ever, never that I will have one, I wouldn't want it to look like me. I want people to have to be questioning, is that me? Or is that...
Yes,
Is that a recycled
I think probably
Eamon
the
Dunphy?
costume is probably a giveaway for me. But I also have one thing I have at home that my children are terrified of is a bronze head of me.
No way.
Yeah, a bronze cast. Now again, like I don't think I'm an egotist, but this sculptor in England, I remember he just approached me one time and he said, like, he was a kind of a trainee sculptor, and he just said, "Can I make a cast of your head?"
Oh, so this wasn't a sculpt. This was a cast.
Like I didn't commission it. I didn't say like what I need in my house now is a cast of my head.
just above the mantelpiece.
Gather round, children.
Yeah. So he sculpted my head. And like it's interesting. I don't think anyone thinks it's very like me, but it is.
So this wasn't taken from you. He didn't put like paper mache in your head, and you had to have straws out your nose. He sculpted this like an artist.
Yeah, well, he
As opposed to like a
he measured my head.
Yeah, okay.
He manhandled
Yeah,
my face. He took lots of photographs from different angles.
right.
And then he I don't know how you sculpt. I don't know what.
tools.
It's bronze anyway. It's metal.
I think they do it in clay and then they make a cast in bronze.
Right, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've also got portraits of me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have.
And were they commissioned or again approached?
No.
Fans.
Well, proper artists like.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one that I quite like. I mean, but my dogs are terrified of it.
Really?
Yeah. I don't post very often on social media, but I did actually post my dog's reaction to this particular portrait because it's really funny. Anytime you want to annoy the dog, you just pick down that picture.
Is it a sort of photorealistic or is it impressionist?
It's quite impressionistic. I mean, I think it's good. Like no one else thinks in my house thinks it's really good. But I see myself in it. I think the artist was really good.
It wasn't that loud. Do you remember during the boom, there was an artist that everyone went mad for in Ireland, and all of his drawings looked very angry with sharp noses. I think McSavage...
Nuttall, is it?
Possibly.
Jonathan Nuttall,
McSavage used him as a poster. He drew McSavage once.
Yeah.
But it was
Well, there was
big.
Graham Nuttall as well, and Jonathan Nuttall. There's
big
various
Nuttall.
Nuttals
There's a lot of Nuttall.
out there doing portraits with angular faces.
You would classify yourself as a culture, I suppose?
Yeah,
Mahon?
proud, sophisticated culture. Yeah.
This is the thing. We had this debate about this podcast in the start of like, do we mention the word or not? Because I find it's like a lot of the times a word people not from the country use as
Yeah,
a derogatory term, and I find it
Justine sees it like the N-word, basically. She's very sensitive about it.
not that, but like Kevin has a point of like we need to reclaim it back. But
Yeah.
I think that's one degree removed from it. I think bogger is another level of like.
No, I don't like bogger.
I don't like bogger.
No.
Yeah.
Culture's fine.
Culture, yeah, because we.
Now, having
considered-
said that, like I did grow up in a town.
Oh, so you were townie.
You're Carrick Macross.
Towny, so I
Yeah.
very much looked down my nose at
yeah.
I- yeah,
out and out boggers from
I-
2 miles out the road.
I couldn't believe the amount of, I'm going to say it, racism that I felt in small towns in Ireland because I lived literally 2 miles outside the road. You had lads from like, there's towns with like 3 pubs in it. And they were like, calling me a bogger. And I was like, there's literally a slurry tank behind you as you're saying this.
I can't hear you over the slurry tank.
I know, and then it's only when you go to Dublin suddenly you're putting your box
Oh, yeah,
down
yeah.
and labelled. Where are
Yeah.
you from, Justine?
Nobber. So actually not far. I used to go out in Carrick Macross growing up a lot. The Fiddlers nightclub was our place to be. I'm not proud of it. I'm not ashamed of it either though. But yeah, County Meath.
Yeah.
So
I remember meeting Pat McCabe, another Monaghan man. My favourite Irish film was The Butcher Boy, which you were in, I think.
Yes, I
You
was,
played
yeah.
Nugent's
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
So I was
My
mad
first
about
major film role with 3 lines.
I was mad about The Butcher Boy, and I was I was cast in a film years ago with that Pat McCabe wrote, and he was on set. So I was just chatting, burning the ear off him, and I was like, "Come here, where did you get? There's a character in the film," and he starts hanging out with Francie towards the second half of the film, and he's a little round-bellied alcoholic goblin. And he's the most amazing character. Where did you find him? And Pat's like, oh, that was me.
Yeah. He's an entertaining man. I mean, as well as a brilliant writer. He's just a great raconteur. And
Who was your kind of comedic or artistic influences when you were growing up?
Ooh. Going right back, I mean, it's very, Laurel and Hardy probably is the first.
Oh, really?
Is the first, like, comedy that I was properly aware of.
Yeah.
Because we lived in one channel land.
Yeah.
RTE channel. And on, I think, Saturday morning, you'd have Laurel and Hardy. You'd also have Norman Wisdom. Do you remember Norman Wisdom
I don't
films?
really remember Norman
You have Jerry
Wisdom,
Lewis films from America. Like, we got a lot of American imports in Ireland. We were a little spoilt. I don't think they got those in England growing up.
really,
I think because
we
we
were
had
able to
less
buy it by,
we had less population, we could afford bigger kind of
Yeah, or
shows
they
and
just
stuff.
gave us like a job lot
car
of
boot sale full
stuff.
of
Exactly, yeah. So we had all these amazing shows, but the Laurel and Hardy stuff absolutely stuck with me. And then later on, like when I had kids myself, I bought the box set of Laurel and Hardy, and we went through it every bit of it, every scrap of it, and it absolutely stands up.
Yeah, totally.
And then, I can definitely see the influence of Stan Laurel on like various things I've done in the past. But then like there was Brendan Grace as well. Do you remember like Brendan Grace and the Bottler stuff?
Yeah.
Like
He was
that was
huge.
the nearest thing to homegrown comedy, I suppose.
It blew my mind hearing stories about him going to Las Vegas
Yeah.
and just hanging out with, like, Sinatra was a massive fan of Brendan Grace. Can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, but he was really funny and really good at his job. Like,
Yeah.
Eventually tastes out, contemporary taste outgrew him or whatever, or and he became unfashionable. But he never stopped being brilliant at what he did.
Were you part of the crew that started the International Bar Comedy Club?
Yeah. Kevin Justine, Barry Murphy, myself, Dermot Carmody, one or two others. Yeah,
So that was the first comedy club in Ireland.
yeah,
We had comedians,
yeah.
but they
Nowhere to put them.
we had nowhere to put them.
We didn't trust them.
Yeah, so they would.
We
have
never
to-
went to see them.
They'd have to travel around and do gigs in hotels and stuff like
Yeah.
that, like Sil Fox and lads like
Phil
that.
Fox, Hal Roach.
Yeah, Hal Roach was a big
Noel
one.
V. Ginnity.
Oh yeah.
So ye set up the first kind of comedy club. So what was your first stand up like? Like what did you base it on? Were you like, I want to be like the cool 80s lads in England?
Yeah, a little bit like that. Well,
I want to separate myself from what's in Ireland already.
Yeah. Like we would have been. We actually wrote up a manifesto.
Oh, so pretentious. What a shower of wankers.
I know. It was shocking, really. Like
That sounds like pure Barry Murphy. Already.
Yeah. And Kevin Justine would have been very kind of, he would have been like a leftist guerrilla.
He's just a gorilla.
Yeah. So we definitely, we kind of come up with a sort of a manifesto of sorts. But I love Steve Martin.
Yeah, me
Because
too.
again, like growing up in Carrickman Cross, so you didn't see an awful lot of comedy. We didn't really watch much TV in the house. So there was across the road, there was a VHS kind of store.
Yeah.
What rental?
Extravision tape.
Videos.
Yeah.
Video rental
Video shop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Forgot what they were called there for a minute. And in the comedy section, there was Steve Martin, the Wild and Crazy Guy stuff. You had Stephen Wright, that brilliant
Oh, so
one-liner.
these are stand-up videos?
Yes.
Wow.
No
Yes,
way.
yes.
Because you
Around-
can't even really get... I've never seen a full hour of his stand-up on video. I've listened to his albums.
Well, this is the problem with the world. Like we think we technology improves everything all the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. When video stores were there, you could get everything under the sun. And later, when DVD came in, like with Laser in Dublin, Laser was the best shop in the world. by
Yeah,
the
that
way.
was class.
Like there was thousands and thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of titles. You didn't have to subscribe to expensive, streaming channels to see stuff. And so in this like shop in a small town in Ireland, you had Steve Martin, you had Stephen Wright, you had Robin Williams, you had Eddie Murphy, you had Richard Pryor, and that was it.
That's
Those
all.
five
That's all
videos.
anyone needs.
That's all you needed to become a comedian. That was
Yeah.
your DIY. That was your manual.
Your false course.
Yeah, and like you could barely see them because they were watched so often.
Yeah.
So it was just these grainy videos. So yeah, that was a kind of a starting point anyway.
So you set up Mr. Trellis, which was yourself, Kevin and Barry, was that right? And
Sketch group. Dermot Carmody was part of it as well.
Dermot,
to
I
begin
see,
with.
yeah. So that, from the stories I've heard from Barry, there's definitely a Steve Martin kind of influence on that.
Yeah,
Was it
Barry
too-
loved Steve Martin, and he like we would have all together watched the movies.
Yeah.
like The Man with Two Brains and The Jerk and stuff like that.
Was it too surreal for Irish audiences, or were you successful?
Well, I mean, sorry, I should say as well though that we did love what was coming out of England at the time. The stand-ups that were coming out. That was beginning to happen. Like,
Is that Alexi Sale, Ben Elton kind of?
yeah, young ones,
young ones, yeah.
Oh,
particularly. Yeah, Barry was mad about the young ones.
I love the young
And
ones.
I was in college with Barry Murphy, and Kevin, but myself and Barry used to sit in the library in college, like literally going through. They had a good library there actually of comedy stuff and all kinds of things there, and we watched all of the young ones.
Wow. What college was that?
DCU.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you have any merch?
No, but we used to make our own props and things like that out of cardboard and paper. Like it was very basic, sort of. That was part of the.
Did you not have a T-shirt?
The appeal of it, yeah.
The appeal of it.
Did you not have a T-shirt
Very rough and
from
ready.
Longford? No.
Oh God, yeah. Sorry, there was method in your
There was method in my
questioning
selection.
there.
He was
Yeah.
setting you up there.
Barry,
Yes.
Barry
I
said
was relying on me being able to remember stuff from more than 10 years ago.
there's such a thing as too much fucking research. Barry told me that he did a gig in Longford purely because he got T-shirts printed in a Longford factory.
That's right.
my
Yeah,
God.
yeah. This friend of mine, he was kind of living in the flat above me in Dublin at the time, and really nice guy. He was an illustrator, and so he had drawn this brilliant illustration of Mr. Trellis. And then
People have been drawing you for years now.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
incredible.
So that was the first one, and then so we decided then that we'd just get a few T-shirts printed, and we got them done in a factory in Longford, and that was I don't know if Barry told you this. That was the famous venue where we were run out of town.
Oh, God.
No way.
Yeah, so we did this gig. So there was the late Alex Lyons was a stand-up comedian. He was with us, and then there was myself, Barry, and Kevin. And we'd taken this booking in this pub in Longford. We'd never played in Longford before. I don't think there was ever comedy in Longford before or since.
They've made a rule.
Yeah, and so we went to this pub, and like we were getting a total of £100 between us or whatever. You know, it's 25 quid each. So this was like payday.
Yeah.
We had to pay for the petrol out of that as well. But anyway, we get there. There's only about 6 people in the audience. And they hate us. And we're doing our sketches and they're roaring at us, they're only students and all this kind of thing. Like, you know, it was a bit too avant-garde for them in Longford. And then it came to, so myself and Barry and Kevin, we always drew lots for everything, you know, and literally, we had this stupid game called In-Betweeners as well, that if you lost that, you had to get off the bus wherever you were. It could be in Athlone or somewhere. Like it was, our lives were basically governed by lottery.
Chance.
By chance. Yeah, exactly.
My Lord.
By luck and by chance. And so
Such a
like we'd
dangerous
always
game to play.
just pull cars to see who had to do anything, or like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to make the phone calls, you have to like, you know, go and see somebody or whatever.
It's a fair system. I won't lie.
Fair system. So I had to go up and ask the jowly, bald, pot-bellied man for the money, for the €100, and he says, "I'm not paying you."
Oh, no.
And I go, "Why not?" "Yes, we're shite." I'm going, but we had an agreement, and he's flanked by 2 giant men with sideburns. Now this is long after sideburns were a thing.
Yeah.
They'd only just landed in
Yeah,
Longford.
no, they're back again. Like that's how long ago it was. They're back in fashion. But back then, and I think they were armed as well, like with cudgels. And they were standing there with the arms folded, and the little man in the middle, like, "No, I'm not paying you." And we just had to leave, tail between our legs, back to Dublin.
And where did you get off the bus? Where did you get off the bus on the way?
Lovely stuff.
This show is part of HeadStuff Podcasts. Here's another show you might like.
Sissy That Pod is a podcast all about RuPaul's Drag Race, and we are going to be covering the latest season of RuPaul's Drag Race UK, which will be airing really, really soon. So if you are a RuPaul's Drag Race fan, make sure that you are subscribed ahead of the season, because we'll be leaving no rhinestone unturned in our coverage. We're going to have some sickening guests, and we'll be getting into every nook and cranny of the conversation. That's Sissy That Pod, wherever you get your podcasts, and on HeadStuff Plus.
We actually had a little accident in the car on the way back. I do remember that. We crashed into a pole. And I remember the one thing I do remember from that crash. Now, none of us were injured, but Astrid Gilberto, jazz from Brazil, was playing. I didn't choose it, okay, I promise. Was
Barry.
playing on. We were very pretentious. Astrid Gilberto, the bossa nova jazz person from Brazil, was playing on the stereo at the time.
And anytime you listen to that now, you're just reminded of Longford.
flashbacks.
Reminded of my very sore shins and been
And
ripped off in
sideburns.
Longford.
Can never drive with that music. Just careen off the ditch.
I don't think I've ever heard of that. Yeah, of people not. I'm trying to think of any. I don't think I can give an example of like not being paid after being told.
Yeah, that was our only experience of it now.
Good Lord.
One of my first gigs, it was sort of Kilkenny Fringe, and it was organised by an absolute chancer. And I was very new. I'd done maybe 4 or 5 gigs, and we had to go around to a pub that was watching football, and he did not want comedy.
No, you don't want that.
Like, they didn't consent to comedy, and we were forcing it on them. and then we had to go around sheepishly with a bucket, and that was demoralising.
I know. My worst one ever was, so I went to London '94, and very happy just to do any gig going. Like, you just needed to scrape the few quid together. And I remember going down to Basildon one night, down in Essex, maybe an hour on the train from London, and it was a council-run gig in a cinema. So it was a cinema complex.
Wow.
So if you can imagine, like 3 screens, screen 1, screen 2, screen 3, a few fruit machines in the corner,
Lovely.
and people milling in and around. And then I was given a plug-in mic, like a 3-pronged plug at the end of a microphone. So you can imagine the noise that came out of that.
So sort of
exactly.
train announcer.
Exactly.
Kind of,
and then just plug it in start, just start. And so, not one person looked at me. But you don't give yourself a hard time over that.
Yeah.
You think conditions weren't right.
Yes, yes.
Completely. Jurassic Park was next door. How could you compete with that?
You're a worker that could actually blame your tools.
Yeah.
Was comedy so popular that just these sort of pub landlords were just like, we'll stick on some comedy to get a few.
Yeah. Yeah,
It was
became
equivalent,
like that.
equivalent of like singer-songwriters and pubs
Show
now.
bands going around.
You did a documentary about show bands.
I did, yeah.
Do you choose your documentaries, or do production companies kind of come to you with ideas?
It works both ways.
Because you do have interesting ideas.
Yes.
I like the way every time I ask a serious interviewer question, you just immediately turn into this pretentious man character.
Philosopher.
It kind of works both ways. Like sometimes, like the show bands one, that wasn't my idea. I was approached by. So that was made for BBC 4 actually, who do great music stuff, and it was an independent production company, State of Grace, and they came to me and said, "Would you like to get involved in this?" And I did, because it's right down my street. Like I love anything like Irish, uniquely Irish. That explains us to ourselves.
Yeah.
So I work with this other guy, Jerry Hoban, a lot, and he sometimes has great ideas, and then we collaborate very closely on them. Sometimes I do have a good idea, not very often, but once or twice, and I'd go to Jerry with it, and then we'd develop it together, and then we'd go and make it. He's the producer director, and I'd be the kind of writer presenter. That's how we've worked over the years, and we've made 3 or 4 very decent documentaries, in my opinion.
The show bands era was fascinating. My grandfather was in a show band called the TV Tones.
Wow.
Which I always laughed at the name, because it's equivalent of like somebody in 1999 calling their band like the Internet Boys. But he was quite. They seemed quite straight laced. There was no sex, drugs, or rock and roll.
Yeah, but it was brilliant. Like, well, now if there's a brilliant book called Heads,
right,
written by Jerry Anderson, who was a Northern Irish broadcaster and former show band person. And he wrote a brilliant book called Heads, which will give you the underbelly of the show band.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Joe Dolan was a character.
Oh, well.
I don't know if you even put him into the show band. You do.
He would,
he would.
Grandad said they were doing a gig one time, and this lad, Joe Dolan, appears out of nowhere. And his drummer was, my grandfather's drummer was disgusted. He's like, you'll not hear about that lad in 6 months. They didn't even play Aron Naveen at the end of the set. They can't even play Aron Naveen.
Yeah.
So women are screaming.
He had them written off straight away. Like.
But there was one time, like the show bands were so popular in Ireland at one time that apparently 50% of the population were employed in show bands.
Oh, Lord.
That does sound like a made-up fact.
Well, it's not far off the mark.
I'm not good at judging numbers.
Is what I'm trying to say. But there was definitely a rule. The musicians' union were powerful in Ireland, and there had to be a minimum of 7 people in a band.
What?
That is a fact. The other fact is
That's
testable.
insane.
That one is
Definitely
not.
a couple of lads playing the triangle there to bunk up the numbers.
But 7 in the band.
That's nuts.
Bloody hell.
And
They
then-
had it figured out.
And then there were just like this huge industry just replaced with a lad with a boxes of tapes or records.
It's the polar opposite now, that bands are non-existent in the charts. You see that recently? Richard Osmond was talking about it, about like bands in the charts. There's only ever been one in the last...
In the last, we'll say, decade of this decade, there's been really one band that's hit number 1, and that's Little Mix.
Which is,
The other was the Beatles who
with
are
their-
long gone.
Yeah.
They re-released the Beatles, and then the other one was like a sort of a novelty thing with a load of solo artists.
Yeah.
So technically, there's only really been one band in the last decade.
All
number
been
one.
single like performers.
And why is that?
I personally don't know. My 2 cents on it is that people seem to, in a way, I think celebrities, musicians are a bit like have a celebrity status now with people that they follow them, and the person it's their personality they're kind of involved in as well, like what they represent, and I support that singer because this is
can
their
connect-
lifestyle. I can
connect with
I can
them
relate.
individually.
I think as opposed to with a band, it's like, well, where's my personality in
pile
this
of boys.
band?
So
Yeah.
it's just
It's
the
a
way
pile of
that they're
boys.
marketed now. It's like the singer
Is
songwriter
the
just push
front,
forward and
yeah.
right.
Yeah, she mentioned hyper individualism.
Oh, now that's a fancy one.
I didn't understand, but I
The
remember
bourgeoisie
that.
use that.
Yeah.
Have you ever wanted to be in a band?
I like no is the short answer.
Really?
Well-
I kind of have
Oh.
a theory. Every comedian secretly wants to be a rock and roll star.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love music. I it's of course, I love it. But I'm just the least musical person in the world. Like,
Really?
I
You
can't
don't play
sing.
anything?
I don't really play anything. I can read music, and I taught myself to play piano. I taught myself to play the trumpet when I was 21. Got a trumpet for my birthday because I saw the Blues Brothers in the cinema, and I wanted a trumpet. And I actually taught myself to play it like really badly. Now, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
I could play the notes.
Yeah.
So I could actually read the music,
Yeah.
play the notes, and like some semblance of a tune had come out. But like it almost broke me
Yeah.
Wow.
physically and mentally.
But you can read piano music. Like you
That's
can
the
read
hard
music.
So then
part.
then during COVID, like I got myself a piano and I learned to play, stuff on it. And
I tried to go back to learn, like it was my biggest regret growing up not learning, and I tried in COVID, middle C and all that on the keyboard trying to learn it. But I was in a class with literal 5-year-olds, and I was like, this doesn't, like I was 28 at the time, being like, and then they asked, do you want to join the summer camp? And I was like, I don't belong here.
I don't think that's legal.
I know. Yeah, it's a bit soul destroying when you're starting from scratch like that. Like because I was able to read the music, so I could learn a piece off and then just play it from memory.
Yes.
But because I'm not musical in any way, like then when it came to, I got a guy in to this fabulous fella called Peter to come in and give me piano lessons. And he was going, that's all very well. You can play that lovely piece by Bach or that lovely piece by the Pogues.
Yeah.
But now we're going back to the very basics, the scales. And like it's a really slow, hard, long journey from there,
Yeah.
But that's the only way you can really learn, I think.
So you were never attracted to like just getting a guitar,
Well,
and impressing people at parties.
Yeah, I always envied the fellas who could do that,
Yeah.
and even the singers, the folk singers. Like I never knew a full song. Like even my wife's incredible. Like she knows every song ever written. She does this thing called Hurdle every morning.
Oh, wow. Oh, I need to get
It's a bit
on
like
that.
Wordle, except it's Hurdle.
Oh, right, okay.
And she's in competition with a friend of hers, Gemma, and the two of them. So they so it's a little app,
Yeah, yeah.
Hurdle, and
It's like a tiny lyrics board in your pocket.
yeah, but it's like
Oh,
literally seconds. So it's how quick you can guess. So they play the first, like literally second, and she gets it.
Yeah.
And there's a 70s version, 80s version, 90s version. She gets them all.
Oh my God.
I wouldn't get out
So it
the
plays
last
a
20
second
years.
of the song.
Plays a second of the song. Now you can let
no,
it
I
run for
wouldn't.
like maybe 3 or 4 seconds,
Yeah.
but she generally gets it in a second. The first note
Jesus.
of every song, she knows.
I think I feel like I've stopped learning things after like 9/11. I know a lot about 90s culture. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with knowing everything, like cultural
Oh, you were a
references.
nerd?
No, not a nerd. I mean like references to stuff.
Oh, okay.
Or like I remember like not hearing a gag that involved the band The Cure, and I don't know what that is. So I went out, got my cousin's CD, listened to The Cure. Now I know that joke.
Yeah.
They're a sad band, basically, was the joke. But after last 20 years, I just
But is that on kind of
Haven't learned
normal,
nothing.
like where
I dunno.
you peak at various
Justine
times in
tells me
various
about new
ways?
bands, and I haven't a clue.
Do I?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It depends what your interests are. Then I go through periods and I'm not learning anything. I'm like, I need to watch a few documentaries. I don't know what's happening in the world anymore. Like, I definitely go through phases of that. But I used to be a huge nerd in school. Like, I was a loser. Like, but then
I was
went
very cool.
I was not cool at all.
But that thing about being cool, like that's the worst thing in the world.
Truly, I think
It
if
really
I'd have
is.
been cool, I would have peaked then.
Yeah, and I
would've-
think I spent far too much time trying to be cool.
I-
And then you realise it's the losers who fucking run the
Yeah,
world.
yeah. You end up
Like,
working.
look at Chris Martin there doing 4 nights.
Yeah.
I'm only joking.
He was a
only
geek-
joking,
he was-
Chris.
he was a geek, I'd say.
But like no, but like it's true. Like all the government is complete bunch of losers.
Yeah.
A bunch of nerds.
Bunch of nerds.
Were you,
bunch of swats? Like
were you
bunch,
funny as a child?
Yeah, I think so. But I was a quiet enough child, like in terms of like in public. But in the home, I think I was quite into the crack. And
Right. I was the opposite.
I think I was the same as you.
I was the opposite. I was no crack at home, but I was crack outside.
right.
Oh, they were at parent-teacher meetings. They'd be like, "Justine is this and she's that." My parents were like, "What?" Like, this
This
not
is our
like-
child here.
Yeah. I was quiet at home, but sorry, I'd be quiet in school
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
focused on teaching. Like, she's very quiet and all, but she's very into the studies. Whereas my parents were like, Jesus, she doesn't do any of that at home.
So did you make your family laugh? Did they find you funny?
Yeah, I do remember my aunt, my Aunt Maura used to enjoy my stories. I made up stories with lots of imaginary friends. And so I remember that quite well myself. But I remember being told that that's what I did. And she'd always say, now, come on, tell me a story. So I'd sit down, right, so anyway. And then I'd just make up this big, long, rambling story about something. So I was always drawn to that. I read an awful lot as a child.
Yeah.
So, that's mainly what I did, actually.
So when you say read a lot, what are you reading?
At the moment.
No, as a child, what were you reading?
Oh, sorry.
Like, are you reading like age appropriate stuff, or are you reading the classics?
Well, a few classics, but children's classics, I suppose, like Treasure Island.
Yes,
that kind of thing.
yeah.
All the Narnia stuff.
Yeah,
C.S.
yeah.
Lewis. I suppose The Hobbit would have come my way.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Irish stuff. There was a fella called Walter Mackin. Very romantic West of Ireland stuff. Kind of love stories.
Did you
but I
go
was reading
Flann
them.
O'Brien at all?
Flann O'Brien a bit later.
Yeah. College probably.
College, probably, yeah. Teens, college. By the time I got around to my teens, I was reading a lot of detective novels. Went through all of Agatha Christie.
Wow.
Anything that was in the school library. But then you'd read the books that my mother was reading as well. Like at home, she read a lot, so I would pick up the books she was reading. So I was probably a little advanced in terms of
Yeah. Did you ever find like books in your auntie's or your granny's house, and they're like, she's always reading these books by Julie Cooper, whoever this is, and then like you look at the covers and it's like a hand on a woman's arse,
Yeah.
And you're like, what is Granny reading here at all? It made me rethink my granny.
Yeah. But of course, like, you were always looking for the dirty bits in books as well.
Yeah.
And like in our school library, there was a lot of books in it, but anything remotely dirty was underlined, and there was a sort of somebody knew
The book
like,
would
that
fall
book over
open.
there in that shelf
Fall open
there,
on that page.
So there was a kind of a directory somewhere of all the dirty bits in all the books.
Lovely stuff.
So you went to London in '94.
Yeah.
So that was that just around the time of Father Ted or before it?
Well, it was fairly soon after that I ended up doing Father Ted.
Yeah.
So like I was in London, I'd say maybe 6 months when I did the audition for Father Ted.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's so insane.
Yeah.
That's the dream.
Yeah, I mean, and I certainly wasn't thinking about like television or anything. I was doing stand up and I was loving it, like really loving it, because there weren't an awful lot of places to play in Ireland, and there was hundreds of places to play in England. I was really enjoying it, really doing well, getting on very well. So I wasn't thinking in terms of God, I'd love to get a TV gig.
Yeah, of course,
I didn't
yeah.
even think it was a possibility, to be frank.
You were still enjoying just doing
Absolutely,
stand-up.
giving it a proper go. So then I ended up doing this audition and getting it, which was, I suppose, a surprise.
It must have been, I was just thinking about it, it must have been just so enjoyable to be doing like a really good comedy show, like with all your friends. Like you
Yeah.
would have probably
Yeah,
all
that's-
known each other.
Yeah,
Like there was
certainly a lot of the
there was
guests.
so many comedians on that show.
That's right. Sure, Barry Murphy was in it. Kevin Gildee did a
Yeah,
part
yeah.
in it. Jason Byrne, Joe
Michael
Rooney,
Redmond.
Pat McDonald,
Yeah.
Michael Redmond. Yeah, absolutely. And Michael Redmond was he played Father Stone
Yeah.
in the first series, and he was brilliant. But he was also a brilliant comedian. He was one of those guys I was sort of talking about earlier, like who'd turn up on British TV just as we were starting.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a few years ahead of us. He lived in England. He was a well-established stand-up comedian over there with a brilliant deadpan set. And, I loved him particularly. Like he was one of my favourite comedians. He would have been very much the Stephen Wright type of comedian.
Yeah.
And he was also really helpful to me. I had met him somehow or other. I suppose the odd gig he'd come to Ireland to do, or maybe up in Edinburgh or something, I'd met him. And he was just really nice to me. He gave me his number. And then when I went looking for gigs in London, Michael sort of made a few calls on my behalf, helped me get off the ground. So, you know, any help with that was
Yeah.
You have to wonder, was that
Indispensable.
character written for Michael Redmond, or did they just go looking for a very
I think it
boring-
might have been actually. Like they were good like that. You know, they did want to use as many comedians as
Yeah.
possible. So, and you know, they were well into their comedy. The writers, Arthur and Graham, and you know, they would go to comedy gigs all the time.
Yeah.
So like they loved Jason and they wanted to get him in somehow.
Yeah.
They loved Pat McDonald, you know, wanted to get him in. So, and Joe Rooney they loved as well. So definitely they would have had those characters in mind.
Yeah.
Now Arthur always said to me that, you know, they thought of very much me for Dougal. Like that was always on the cards. Now they did look at other people. I know that for a fact. I know Kevin McAleer has talked about it, saying that he was looked at for it, and you know, and then Don Wycherley, who ended up playing Father Cyril Macduff, my kind of doppelganger from Rugged Island, he was also looked at very closely as a
Okay.
proper dramatic actor. Yeah, but they went for comedians. You know, like Dermot was one of those comedians who you know, before like comedy clubs and all that, he was one of those guys who, you know, travelled lonely roads of Ireland doing his one-man show, you know, and Frank then was a previous generation. He was on this amazing show called Hall's Pictorial
I remember it.
Weekly,
I had a
which
DVD
we
of it,
watched as
yeah,
kids, which was a satirical political show. So he'd been around forever as well.
He had several number one hits as well. Didn't he? He had records and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic to see that they really gave comedians that opportunity, because
Yeah.
I think comedians make some of the best actors. Like, and
Yeah,
it's
I know.
Like,
It's a funny one. Like it's they don't always get the credit for it.
truly,
But yeah, no, absolutely. Why wouldn't it be? As
They're some of the saddest people in the world.
That's exactly it. You know, and it's there's, I think, shows sometimes maybe overlook comedians at times for comedic roles. Weirdly, that, you know, and don't get me wrong, I think dramatic actors can do it, but I think dramatic actors can't always do comedy roles, whereas I think comedians can definitely do more dramatic
yes,
roles.
I agree. We
Yeah,
should get
yeah.
we should get a petition going.
Get a manifesto up.
There we
Let's
go.
do
Need
it.
a manifesto.
That's what's missing. No, but I think it's true. I heard a really good interview on the radio yesterday. They were Brendan O'Connor show. They were talking about Adam Sandler's career
Yeah.
Oh,
as a case in point. Like, you know, some of the stuff he's done in movies like that aren't his own movies, but
Yes.
where he's done it as
Paul
a
Thomas
dramatic
Anderson.
actor. Just
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, and Uncut Gems.
Yeah.
Tarantino
Safdie Brothers.
apparently wanted him for the Bear Jew in Inglourious Bastards.
Right.
Because, you know, he's got this tremendous anger.
Yeah.
Even in his
Yeah.
comedy roles, his first two films, it's Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore,
Yeah.
where like he'd freak out and like smash a glass and threaten somebody
Yeah.
with a broken bottle. And Tarantino wanted him to be this angry fucking
Yeah.
lunatic.
Yeah.
But he couldn't do it because he was filming Jack and Jill,
Oh my God.
something like that. Imagine missing out on Inglourious Bastards because
yeah.
you're dressing
Yeah.
up as your sister.
Lovely stuff.
Ardal, do you think you could ever kill a man, and how would you do it?
Well, I am actually, would you believe it? I am writing crime novel at the moment. No, but I am. I literally am. So I am Googling how to kill people in various ways. And literally, like every day.
Jesus.
Wow.
So I'm well versed in how to kill a person via poison or and other ways too. So I'm waiting for the knock on the door any day now. Like you know, so
the-
sure,
from the
a
guards.
lot of red
Come on.
flags. Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't know how. I mean, I don't want to give it away because I actually have a brilliant way
use
of
it.
murdering someone
Okay,
in my
well.
novel. So
Do you have to limit
you will
that?
find out in about a year's time.
I'm hesitant to tell you my recent case. It is
Okay.
in your book, but I'd bet somebody €1,000 they couldn't eat 12 bananas in a row.
It's a great way to die.
And you go to the ATM, show them the cash, and then give them 12 bananas. Apparently, you'll die if you eat 12 bananas in a row.
But that depends on the person. It's the potassium in your body then.
The
can't
body can't handle it. Just shuts
gives you a
down.
heart attack, essentially. But that will depend on the person.
How well read they are on
And
banana
what size
facts.
is the banana? Like, there's a lot of factors here that I don't
You've
know.
looked into this
I've
clearly.
looked into it.
I think like, you know, if you can give someone a good fright.
Oh, you're talking about like Casper rules, where you frighten somebody so
Frighten
much
someone to death.
that their soul leaves their body.
Yeah.
Just jumps out of their shoes, leaves their shoes behind them. You'd want to be
Yeah.
very scary now.
Yeah, yeah, or just find what it is that they're terrified of.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
Naked clowns or something.
Yeah.
Do you have to limit how much you're looking at that kind of stuff for your own head?
Well,
Well,
sanity.
Well, no, but for your own security, like
Yeah, well, that, yeah.
He gets a new laptop every 2 weeks. Like.
yeah.
It's
I
breaking
mean,
me
you just
financially.
luckily I have written quite a lot of the books, so I have the proof that I'm not just
Yeah,
So
looking for
you were always into detective stories.
I was actually, yeah, always into them, yeah.
Is that what attracted you to Death in Paradise, apart from like filming on a beautiful Caribbean island? Like, would you have taken that job if it was set in Clare?
I know there's worse places than Clare.
Longford.
Death in Athlone.
No way. That'd be a documentary. No, I suppose when I was asked to do Death in Paradise, I was delighted. Like, I mean, but as it turned out to be like quite a hard job.
Really?
Yeah.
Just the hours, or
Well, it was very hot.
oh, so it's too
It's too hot. And too
See, I
humid.
never thought that.
It's lovely to be on holidays there, but
Yeah.
to be working there, it's not.
Because you look. I'm not saying you'd look, but when I'm on holidays, I look atrocious.
Same.
Yeah.
I'm just
melting.
my clothes
Yeah.
look like they're wet. My head looks like it was boiled.
Yeah.
It's hard to look like.
I'm a ham.
I'm a ham man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to look, like a cool detective, easy breezy,
Yeah.
solving the case
Yeah, I
when
know.
you're just.
I know. Look, it was brilliant, but you'd always be very uncomfortable. Like you'd be like wet from the moment you wake up.
Oh,
in the
God.
morning, you like you're just always wet. You can't be dry and you can't be cool.
Yeah.
Ever. So like
and there's
you
always
literally
peop-
have to change your clothes between takes. So you had like about 3 of everything.
And there's makeup
Every shirt,
ladies
right.
wiping you
Yeah,
and
wiping
sticking you
down,
with a piece of
fanning you down,
paper
putting
and
ice
stuff.
on your head, all that kind of stuff.
But at least it was, the whole cast. Like, it'd be worse. I just would be worried if I was the only Irish person there. That I was needing all this and
All
everyone
these-
else is fine.
All these beautiful Caribbean people are just really cool looking.
And they're fine. And they're like, Justine's on outfit 5 and it's 9:05. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the budget for the clothes is destroying this show.
Yeah. I know, but it was great. It was great. I look back on it very, very funny. But at the time, like it's hard, because you do 6 days a week, 12 hours a day.
Oh, 6 days is a
and
lot.
it gets dark at 7 o'clock every night. So you work from 7 to 7.
7.
Yeah.
And then the kind of the cacophony starts of crickets and frogs and
Yeah.
howling hens and dogs, wild cats.
God,
everywhere.
on paper, it sounds like a dream job.
Yeah,
But
it's a
then-
dream job
yeah.
for guest actors.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they come out.
Someone
and
comes
do
in, gets killed, goes
3 or
home.
4 days. Yeah,
Yeah.
And if you're playing the murdered person, you're just lying down for 3 or 4 days.
I mean, I used to watch it with my wife, and I would do impressions of you if your character was on like Law and Order, or like the killer left a semen all over the crime scene. I just like the idea of you just solving horrible crimes.
Yeah, I
Instead
know.
of-
I'd love to do a very serious crime thing. Actually, yeah, I would love to.
Would
do
you?
it. Yeah, I would. Surely,
Fascinated by
absolutely.
murder?
Yeah. Well, fascinated by all aspects of the human condition.
There's that guy again.
Yeah.
Love hate, like something like that would have been.
That would have been good fun, wouldn't
That's the writer's actually
Yeah.
from Nobber, Stuart
Oh,
Carlin.
right.
which is-
Justine won't shut up about
Yeah.
this fact. The writer
it's a
from
great
Love
fact.
Hate is from Nobber.
See, I'm not like you. I have more references after 9/11. Okay, mine is Stuart Carlin.
I'm humble about the people of
Yeah,
Cavan.
he doesn't even remember Love Hate. That was after his time.
It's always interesting like that, where they go, what they write next. I don't even know the writer of Kin, what he's worked on since.
Yeah, I've no idea.
Hmm.
So God,
But
you're
it's that,
bit-
I hate that expectation that if you do something brilliant, you have to do something else brilliant.
Yeah.
Even you see when people are interviewed and they're like, after a film, in a junket being like, and what are you doing next? I'm like, for the love of God,
Leave him
I'm
alone.
just
Yeah.
after doing
Yeah.
this. Like,
It's like my parents, like I might have had the best year ever. Like I made a documentary, I did Death in Paradise, I wrote a book, I did this, I did that. What are you doing next?
What are you doing next week?
I came over the weekend, my mother was like, they're looking for people in Brussels to work and like language. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to do this career. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you had a time machine and you could go to any period, and you're allowed to do whatever you want, so you don't have to worry about the space-time continuum at all, where would you go?
I'd go to Crete last year.
It's a particularly good summer in
I had a
Crete.
very nice holiday in September in Crete with my wife that I really enjoyed. I wouldn't mind going back to do
But
that again.
You'd have to go back and stay in your hotel room with yourself. So it'd be you in bed with your wife and another version of you.
Oh,
you'd be shit.
threesome.
I just didn't know.
When people say they like a threesome, I don't think that's really what they're normally going for.
No.
Well, like, are you talking about in your own life? Like, I always have this debate of like, if you could go back and change something in your life, would you? Like, because I know there's definitely crucial things in my life that I'm like, I wonder if that hadn't happened, would my life be different? But would it be worse?
Oh, so
Would it be
you'd
better?
So you've a chance to go to witness the birth of Christ, to see the
Yeah, but
Roman
you see, but
Empire.
this is the-
I
this is
didn't
the
know
thing,
him personally.
Like,
you
be
know,
careful what you wish for. You know, like, you know, a lot of people will say like the swinging 60s or something.
Yeah,
But like, you know, if it depends. For most people, there was no swinging 60s.
Yeah.
They weren't aware of the swinging 60s. There was 100 people in London, most of them from the upper classes,
yeah.
and some rock musicians who were involved in the swinging 60s. And
Yeah.
most of them died in car crashes. So, like, you know, is that really what you want?
rose
Yeah,
tinted
you're not gonna
glasses.
Other people will say ancient Rome. Again, there was like a few people who lived in houses. Everyone else lived in mud hovels and
Yeah.
urinated on each other to keep warm. I mean, is that what you want?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking
you're
about?
working a mop in a vomitorium or something.
You know, so like every period in history was like really terrible. And, you know, the main thing you would be doing is hiding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, you know, that's why I'm hesitant to kind of pluck a period of history, you know.
yeah.
And
you're even hesitant to just imagine it.
Beatlemania would be cool, but then you're going home and you're not the Beatles. You know what I mean? You're
No.
going home to your
Yeah,
life.
So your bad teeth and
My bad teeth.
Crap
yeah.
healthcare.
I told you
Yeah.
not to bring them up, Kevin. All right? But
I'm not talking about Europe. I'm talking about people in the 60s had bad
know,
teeth.
but
Also,
both.
yeah, I think
if you narrow the question down a bit, like to say, is there a time in Irish history you would have liked to been involved in maybe?
I don't think anyone would go back.
No.
Maybe 2004.
the boom time was a wild time, wasn't it? Wouldn't it be nice to go back and just relive the lunacy of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like just stuff. People,
Try and stop it. Try and stop the excess.
No, Justine go back and just buy 4 houses.
I'd have a villa in Tenerife. Like.
Yeah, or go back just to before the boom and buy 20 houses and then sell them 10 years later. Yeah,
Now we're
that would
talking. Yeah, I don't know. I always have that thing of like, even I have this weird thing of if you had a different name at birth, would you be a different person? I have this theory
I
that you
definitely
would.
believe that, yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
you were
You're called Clint or something.
Clint,
Yeah.
yeah.
be. Yeah.
I think you'd either go 2 ways. You'd rise to the challenge of that cool name, or it'd be bet down into you.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Like,
that
you're
you-
no Clint.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're both performers.
Yeah.
So whatever, you know, so obviously, you know, I'm always fascinated anyway by, you know, performers and what is that impulse and, you know, is there a need there that you're hoping to fulfill somehow or other by performing live in front of people and so on. And like, did you ever, when you were a kid, like sign your own name as if it was an autograph? Did you do that?
Yeah.
Does everyone do that?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an interesting thing to like. I suppose,
Practice your autograph,
Yeah.
like, in case you
I
ever
think
had to
what I
sign.
did was I went into the computer, I typed in my name, and then I set it to like fancy French calligraphy, the font, and then I just copied that. And to this day, you could easily forge my signature by just typing my name into Microsoft Word and finding that font, because I've based it on what a computer would write. If
Wouldn't
it
that
was
be
a
great
human.
though to have a font called after you?
Yeah, that's now, yeah.
The McGahern.
Yeah. The O'Hanlon, yeah.
That'd be
yeah.
my ambition.
I mean,
I used to think it'd be lovely.
it
like,
wouldn't necessarily have to be a nice font.
No, it wouldn't.
Well, now, come on.
But wouldn't it be great
live
to
a
have, but wouldn't it be great to have something called after you?
But what if you
Yeah.
could have anything? What would it be? That's the thing. Like,
Well, there's
the
a few
dream
things. So there's
scenario.
I like there's the Heimlich maneuver.
Yeah.
I would like, you know, the O'Hanlon maneuver.
Yeah. So how would it
sounds
how would you
like,
differentiate that move? Like a
It'd
box,
be
him
more
in
of
the
a
stomach?
punch in the
Yeah, punch in the gut.
in the gut
Yeah, or a kick up the
or
arse.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Stafford would be like a funeral handshake. Would be the Stafford maneuver. We have a very
Yeah.
solid funeral handshake.
Yeah.
How's
Imagine
that
having
go?
your own maneuver.
It
Oh,
has to
yeah.
be sturdy now.
Has
You
to
know?
be sturdy,
oh
yeah.
not that. That's too much now.
Yeah.
You know, but
What about one of these? We go. "Whey."
that's terrible. It's nothing worse than a limp handshake.
A priestly
It just,
handshake.
A priestly handshake.
Good Lord, it stays with you.
Was there ever a time where like you used being a priest in the 90s to your advantage?
Oh, good Jesus!
Loaded question again.
I'd go back in time to before
Yeah.
Kevin asked that question. Actually, is what I do now.
Well, I mean, I did one time when we were filming some. Well, there's a few incidents. Like one time when we were down in, I think it was County Clare, think it was in Ennis actually, and we were filming. It could have been the Christmas special actually, and we were filming in one of the big shops there in Ennis, and then there was a lunch break, and I was still dressed in the priest gear, and I went browsing, and I was in a shoe shop, and the man thought I was a real priest, and he said, take anything you want, Father.
Really?
Yeah, help yourself there. No charge. And he kind of winked at me.
I mean, you were really
Took a nice pair of ducks.
Oh, you're dead right. Took two.
you could argue that you had kind of the best of both worlds. You looked like a priest in the mid-90s when the priests were really still quite powerful. But then you could also go and have sex with girls.
Yeah. That's best of both worlds.
Best of all worlds.
Yeah.
Well, Ardal, I think we've reached our time here. I want to thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, you're very most welcome.
Truly,
You're
thank you so
a lovely
much.
man to talk to.
Pleasure, yeah.
Justine, did you like it?
Yeah, absolutely loved it.
It's been lovely.
And I'm looking forward to the book now.
Oh, yeah.
Really,
Can't wait.
truly.
Yeah.
Find out,
Can you tell us
how
the name?
I would ultimately.
Can you tell us the name of it? Do you know
I
the name?
haven't got a name for it yet.
Oh.
So when can we expect this? It'll not be after Christmas.
No, it'll not be before Christmas. No,
Right.
it'll be about a year away or more.
Well,
And
okay.
maybe you'll have your own font as well.
Yeah, write it.
Well.
Hand write it.
The McGahern font.
No, he'll sue you.
Copyright. Ardal, thanks so much.
Thanks a million.
Cheers.
This show is part of the HeadStuff Podcast Network, a hub for the creative and the curious. Shows are produced in association with HeadStuff and the Podcast Studios Dublin. Find out more or become a member at headstuffpodcasts.com.